actors can not remember or can start to impose or start to get a bit carried away, overplay emotion, just start to kind of do things that, and then I find that frustrating because I have to stop them and work out a way for them to not do that, because I think the director's fear is that the performance won't be as you left it, and you can't touch it then. You know, you just can't touch it. So, and with an audience, they often tend to kind of get carried away, or, you know, an audience will respond, or they'll feel a kind of rush of emotion and they'll just end up overplaying or demonstrating that or taking it too far. And that just takes it away from the spectator. That just removes it. So I just have to hope that they don't do that now.
A lot of the process is about the script, is about you and the words and the dialogue, and you can't come to a rehearsal with nothing, I don't think, with no intuition about what a character is doing in a particular moment, because then the director's like, well, you know, I don't know what to work with.
Well, I've probably got quite a big ego as well, so I think there are plenty of egos in the room. The actor's ego is often a problem because it will impose, and you know, Michael Chekhov talks about that, and reaching a kind of higher space than just working with your ego. And I think they get there in the end because they realise the work is kind of bigger than them.
Ah, yes, that's very true. That is true. Like, that's quite a revelation, actually.
Dilip, recent in this process, has been using Michael Chekhov and using a lot of Michael Chekhov's methods more, with his own slight little twist on it. And he's starting to do it now just naturally as the process goes along, because it just fits, you know. So he's worked a lot on the Michael Chekhov method and stuff before. So he has such a bag of tricks, you know. He's just pulling it out, reshaping it, dusting it off, and he can use it for what we're doing in Closer. And I think the reason he's naturally, my own personal opinion, like I haven't spoken to this about him, about the reason why he's doing it, but working on the other shows with him and seeing how much more he's using this method in this one, I'm under the opinion that it's because of how it's a contemporary piece, and how, you know, some of the scenes and some of the moments can be aligned with a lot of art imitates life, or it can be aligned with real life, you know. How we've all gone through heartache, how we've fallen in love, you know, the sense of someone cheating on you, betrayal, inadequacy, you know, these type of themes. And it can be damaging and it can be exhaustive, you know. So, and this is where I think he's brought Michael Chekhov in to have a safety for us, so we can have like a dual conscience. So instead of, say, me performing in this argument scene as Larry and finding a lot of Conan coming out, do you know what I mean? In the argument, so I'm just being me essentially, like I'm talking to you now in the argument. That can happen. Yeah, right? And he's like, no, I can see too much of Conan in there. So you're confusing it, you're blurring the lines. I need to see more of Larry. And remember, Larry, he's successful, he's a doctor, he worked hard. So you see what I'm saying? So you're like, oh, as an actor, like, you're right. Because it's so close sometimes, what you're doing. So you need that safety. So he creates a distinction between you as an actor and then Larry as the character. And when you talk to that, you can hear it. So like, that's Larry, and then you can start to think, that's what Larry would do. And you create that separation then, so it's safe, you know? And he hasn't done that before, because I don't think approaching the work hasn't been as close as it's been with this play. And that's only due to the writing, because the writing's so amazing.
Well, I think that realism or naturalism isn't real life, it's the illusion of real life. And that's really important. People think it just looks like real life, but it's heightened. It's full of the sort of big sort of tension points. So it's actually, when you get it at the right level, people will believe it. People will accept that this world is, you know, that you've created is real. And that's about everyone buying into that in space. So it's not real life. You have to simplify everything that you do. You have to kind of break it down and make it, it's almost like a conscious process for them. So you say, you know, what do you want and what are you doing? And the more you do that, the more it becomes a kind of subconscious play. So really most of what we do in life is driven by our subconscious or our kind of unconscious, if you like, from Freud, and it's all that stuff coming through. Whereas we have to do that the other way around. We have to bring out all of the unconscious stuff that the character's doing into the consciousness, and then over time it will go back again. But we have to kind of make it all conscious, which is why it feels very fake. You know, when you first start doing it, it feels very demonstrated for the actor because they're being very conscious about what they're doing and why they're doing it. But after a time, it just becomes more instinctual, and that stuff just starts to happen for them. And really, when they're in a performance, you're hoping that those dual consciousness, which is the actor and the character, are working together and they're supporting each other. But you can't be a character completely, otherwise you'd be schizophrenic. You know, you're mad. So there's always the actor there with the character, and they're kind of it should be in harmony.
First, you have to sort of take into consideration given circumstances, which is what has happened before, what people have said about you, what you've said about other people, and generally it's very helpful for actors to write this down, just like empirical. Just write down, you know, in scene 2, Larry says she's a princess or something, and I know, you know, you note things, so you know how people feel about you. So that's just sort of percolating. And you come to the scene, and you find that, like let's say for the dance scene where I'm taking photos, I might be talking about pigs, because there's a scene where I talk about pigs, but really I'm flirting. So the action is that it's like a monologue about how pigs were breeding underground in London. They weren't really. But my action is to flirt, to reach, to somehow connect with this person. And then through that, you know, you put them together and you look at the page and you go, oh, she's flirting here, she's reaching, she's stroking in some places. This is all sort of,
So it's you find the verb.
You find the verb of what you're doing, and then when you consider all that together, you generally find a motivation, which is the sort of overarching thing for the scene. And it might be, I want this person. I want the attention of this person.
When you're working with actors and you're saying don't push emotion, you're just saying don't indulge yourself. Don't get carried away with suddenly on feel. You know, actors love to feel because they love to. It's very cathartic. But you really do have to it's really controlling them all the time. It's really simplifying it. It's really stopping them going into big sort of emotional spaces. And I think in terms of that sort of pushing and those moments that happen, when you're in rehearsal and you're questioning the actor, it's going another level down. So you say, well, okay, what's happening here for you? Why are you doing this? And they give you a response that might be pretty obvious, and you say, well, why? So I gave an example today of, you know, if you go past a checkout at a supermarket, you know, how are you today? I'm fine, thanks, how are you? If the person says to you, you know, you say, how are you? And they say, I'm fine. You say, oh, you know, why is that? You know, it forces them to kind of think about that. And then they might say, well, because I've had a really good day. Oh, well, what's been good about it? Oh, well, it's gone really quickly. Well, why is that good? Because I hate working here. Why do you work here? Because I'm a single parent. Oh, how did that happen? And before you know it, they're kind of tuning into their sort of reasons for being there, and they're kind of, you know, and so it really is, it's kind of like a therapist would do. You're kind of trying to pry into the character a little bit deeper and get the actor to connect more to the bigger stuff, the stuff that's really important, that's just not being said. Because a play is all about what's not being said. It's all about the subtext. It's all about the atmosphere. It's all about tensions that, you know, everything seems okay, but something's really wrong. It's those juxtapositions that are exciting. And you only get that if the actor knows that and then kind of plays the mask or plays the stuff that's covering it. Yeah. But they've got to know what that is. And the only way that they're really going to do that is the time it takes to keep on probing, to keep on pressing, to keep on saying, well, I don't believe that, or it doesn't make sense. You know, so they have to kind of argue the case. And I think when you argue, in the first person, you get very empathic for the person you're playing. So, you know, Anna or Larry will start, you know, the actor will start talking as Larry to you, answering as Larry. And you say, oh, come on, you know, why are you with her? Yeah. And then he starts to search as Larry. And the more he does that, when they leave, they kind of, you know, start to become that person because they're just thinking more and more like them.
He doesn't really look at the script. He is informed by what the actors are saying, which I don't think I've worked with before. Generally, a director will come in and go, okay, so what's happening in this scene is, I've got a fair idea about it, la 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 la, let's see what you've got. But with Dilip, it's like, show me. Because it comes out of that, you don't want to put anything on top of it. And I think we've found some things that are really interesting choices because we've worked it out together. And often it's a little bit harder to get to because you don't know where you're going. If you go down the wrong direction, it's like, oh, it's not working.
It's a process that just seems to develop the more and more I'm involved in it. So I've been teaching a lot of Michael Chekhov this semester, and I think that's influenced, I've been doing a lot of reading around that, so that's kind of influenced what I'm doing. And I'm just sort of hooked into reading about him at the moment, so that's my sort of primary drive, I think. But underneath it all is that idea that you don't want the actor to start with emotion. You just don't want them to get emotional. You want them to really work with the want and the need and the drivers and the physical kind of manifestation of that want. So you know, and the action and the objective, and then to see what comes up. And you really have, and that's at my core. I really realised that a lot of people work with, you know, say, how do you feel in the scene, and the actor will say, I think I feel fear, and they'll say, okay, well, be scared as you do it. And I find that if the actor's scared or trying to manifest fear, then it's often demonstrated when it comes to performance, because that's what they're trying to bring up. And that may work for a kind of a take on a film or for TV or something, but it doesn't really work for theatre because you've got to repeat it. You know, you've got to be able to do it again and again and again, whereas you only really have to do it once for the camera and it's caught it.